This is open conversation so we can really dig in with people in the community.
My tagline is inspire one person at a time. It starts with one person. When you inspire someone, you change their attitude.
We could have the most cutting edge tool, but if someone doesn't see how it improves their day to day, it doesn't go as far for us.
We're being inundated with progress tracking, AI, object recognition, all this futuristic stuff, but it's here, it's now.
Somebody within the business who will not only own it, but they believe in it too.
Who's the client that's using this? It's all the people in the field that are actually empowered by this technology.
Creating that space that people know I'm not going to get in trouble if something didn't go right.
Finally now have enough power in the palm of our hand to bring that to the real world, and thinking about how you can connect and leverage that digital world with the physical to increase speed to market, to make people safer. There's just so much opportunity there.
All righty. How's everybody doing so far? Still hanging in there. Day one. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for our first panel conversation. We always have a lot of panels, and reason being the things we've talked about, right? Community, collaboration. I love open conversations. We do not overly rehearse. We do not have a ton of planted questions per person. This is open conversation so we can really dig in with people in the community. It's really why I love panels. So we are kicking off our first panel to talk about really the high level things, right? We are all trying to adopt technologies and we're trying to innovate, but it starts also with some of that core business stuff of leadership and the culture of our company and how do we innovate? What is innovation? So before we kick off and start digging in, actually one more announcement. We will be using the app. For those who have already downloaded it, there is a Q&A function that can be used for the panels and the presentations. Some presenters may use them live, some may go back in after, but if you're in the app and you go in the agenda and you click on whatever session we're in, there's a Q&A section where you can actually submit questions. So you may have not already downloaded, but go ahead and search for that and you can submit questions throughout as well. All right, we're going to start with some introductions. So we'll start on this side and make our way down.
Awesome. I'm Ashley Crowder. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ventana. We're a 3D asset management platform and wrote intelligent compression algorithms so we can take any massive 3D file and shrink it down so you can securely share it on a mobile device or headset.
Awesome. Thanks for having us here. I'm Kevin Grover. I'm one of the Canadians, I guess, on the panel here anyway. So I'm a recovering surveyor, I guess. I got introduced to laser scanning and photogrammetry far too long ago. So I'm with an engineering firm in Western Canada called McElhaney. I lead our innovation program for all of our geospatial and engineering and environmental science work within our company.
Great. I'm Kathryn Dreitzler. I'm with Argo Construction. I'm Director of Innovation at VDC. My background is in architecture and then have made my way to innovation by way of consulting and working at startups. A lot of what we do is buy, build, or invest in new technology and deploy it across the enterprise.
Cool. I'm Rick Kahn. I'm a director of mega projects for Via Technic. I work on $10 billion projects focused on communication strategy, technology strategy to help these the architects and construction folks leverage the greatest information. I've been in the industry for 35 years, started as a pipe fitter at 15, and the last 20 I've been focusing on innovation for the AEC sector.
Wow. Morning, everybody. My name's Angela Thomas, and I'm the Director of Corporate Innovation for Power Engineers. And Power Engineers, they are an engineering consulting firm, and one of our largest offices is actually here in Boise, Idaho. And as the Director of Corporate Innovation, I take big ideas that people have, and I help turn them into something that's manageable and to a minimal viable solution or product that we can either learn from or even take further on to scaling and into productization. I also focus on building a culture of innovation, so really the people side of innovation within our companies. And I've been in the industry, not in my industry, but just technical side of things for over 20 years. Started as a web developer, project management, and the way of corporate innovation.
Awesome. I get to go last. I work for Rogers O'Brien. Well, I'm Trevor Owen. I'm the manager of our reality capture department at Rogers O'Brien Construction. We're a 55-year-old builder in Texas, and yeah, it's awesome to build in Texas. We only build there, and we specialize in all commercial types of projects. And I love Rick's title. When I first saw that, mega projects. It's like, how much cooler can you get? Mega projects. But started off an electrical contractor, working in a very hot warehouse in South Louisiana when I was 18, and worked there for many years. After graduated college, went to work for Hilti as a product manager, designing and launching. I was a part of a global team, but I helped launch BIM design services for U.S. and Canadian markets. And then also then moved to Rogers O'Brien earlier this year in March. So really seeing different perspectives of the industry over the past several years.
Awesome. Thank you. Love it. Very diverse group. Lots of innovation focus, right? So we're going to start with that. What is innovation? Because you all do it, so.
I'd say last week I heard the best definition that I have heard forever, because there's so many definitions out there, and we've heard so many definitions with our different bosses. Innovation is monetized creativity.
Ooh.
And then Rick.
I would say, and I've been talking about this for years, 2 words, and you'll never forget it. Improving life. That is what innovation is about. From our perspective, it's about people. And how do we help our field teams from a construction standpoint be more effective? How do we focus on developing the people to really drive innovation?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the biggest and most impactful innovations that we've seen are the ones that have the direct impact of our associates. We could have the coolest, flashiest, most cutting edge tool, but if someone doesn't see how it improves their day to day, then it doesn't go as far for us.
Yeah, I loved that you said monetize, because I think at the end of the day, we're all running businesses, and you're going to be able to sell something in if you can show the value to the business. So I know when we're working with a lot of clients and they're so excited about using 3D and XR, it's, I always start with, okay, well, what is the best POC to start with that can tie to like your leadership's core KPIs to this year? Because once you can prove that it works, then you can, expand everywhere. That was great.
I thought we were just trying to focus on new toys. The fun stuff.
I heard one time that cool is not a business case.
Yeah. So many people say that. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. I like to say, like, don't come to me with an idea. Come to me with a business case, and who does the innovation impact, or will it impact? You know what I mean? I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
Just to add to that too, I think it's even not even a business case, coming to me with a problem. I think is even that's the first thing to address is like, as you see here, there's a pile of technology that's out there. Well, there's hardware, software in the market, and I think we're overwhelmed with the amount of technology. I know we struggle with that kind of within our firm to figure out how we can fit it into our business processes, but I think, how we can improve people's lives, how we can monetize ideas. I don't think that's one thing that we totally relate to, I guess, regarding innovation. We need to get to that point.
Yeah.
But of course, from our side, failing with innovation is honestly fantastic as well.
We won't go deep into the differences of technologies right now, but I do want to comment on it because you said it. It is more like, especially when we are talking about these tools, it's more difficult now than it was when we started 15 years ago, because there was like a scanner option and you figured out how to use it with the targets that existed. Now it's like, wait, there's a handheld and a backpack and a mobile and your phone, and you're like, and they all are different. So now it's more difficult to figure out what you need and what to implement and how to use it and get data into a platform than it used to be. But let's go back to, I want to hear, some of you have been in innovation for quite a while and in your career longer than I. I feel like companies are putting more of a focus now on innovation and creating processes around it or teams around it than they used to be, at least maybe in our industry. What is some of your feedback there that you've seen change over the years as far as companies focusing specifically on innovation? Because it is challenging. You have to put funds to it. You have to put people to it. How have you seen that change over the years?
I believe it has to be part of your strategy. How you deliver and go to market internally with innovative processes. And because one of the things we really challenge ourselves with in our team, because we're really under the umbrella of VDC at RO, and we might come with an innovative idea, but if it's only solving our team's problems, is that really impacting the business? And so we really have to challenge ourselves with who is our end customer, and that's the project team. How are we making their life easier? Because they got the gold, they're on the project. How do we maximize their savings or help them work through problems that they're uncovering on the job site? But when I say it's part of the strategy, like at RO, we are looking really into the future. How do we think crazy or implement crazy into the future, and then pull back and work towards the crazy? One of the things that we're working on right now for my team is kind of our North Star in year 26 is we believe that to really make an impact at our job sites is building a physical space that's a construction command center. And then the reality capture team, if that's the name of the team at the time, is really looking to be more the data gatherers. How do we feed this model, this platform, the data, changing the stigma around reality capture from just purely scanning, but more like gathering data, whether it's sensors, whether it's fixed cameras throughout the job site, not just on the trailer, implementing robotics. How do we take tasks away from just builders, but they're walking around with an iPad taking pictures with their tablet, they're not building? How do we augment that? And that's one of the things we're working on right now is we're testing, piloting things, but that's kind of our North Star is the command center.
Yeah, especially for this industry and the built environment, it's essential to have people looking at the future. I just I've been chatting with Intel. They're like, we have to plan for 10 years out when this chip manufacturing facility is going to be complete. So what tech do we need to be thinking about today that we're going to need in 10 years? So if you don't have these amazing people thinking about that, it'll be out of date by the time it opens.
One of the things I like to talk about is knowledge management. If your company does not have a knowledge management program, communities of practice, I would question if you guys are innovative, because innovation is about people. No companies innovate, people innovate. So how do we, create communities of practice around a business goal and have cross-functional team members addressing that problem, every quarter or once a year, twice a year? And it's all about knowledge sharing. It's all about developing people, right? I don't care about products, and all I care about is people. My customer is the person working next to me, is my superintendent, and I innovate for them, not for me. And so I think that's an important topic.
And I think for us at ARCO, we centralize innovation so that we can continue to innovate and try new things, but take that pressure and that risk off of our project managers and off our superintendents. So we oftentimes will run alongside of them on a job to try something new, rather than put it on someone and increase their workload. There's already so much that project managers and superintendents have to oversee now, and they're not always super excited to, hey, we're going to put these new cameras on your job site. Hey, here's this new thing on your iPad we want you to try. So a lot of it is that people side, to be, I'm the person who's going to come out and do this, and I'm going to see it through, and I'm going to, include you in it as I'm doing it, but we're in this together as a team. And I think that that's really where we've seen the most success, is being the ones to kind of be the steward of the new technologies and pull it through, and have people just kind of gain that trust in what we're doing, and that we're not chasing the big shiny things. We're out here really trying to improve what it is, and then next time that person is more likely to go ahead and implement it and talk to their friends about it. And that's how we really gain momentum, and how our most innovative ideas have really moved forward.
I would agree with that. In addition, I would say we have found it's very important to have an overall sponsor or somebody within the business who will not only own it, but they believe in it too. Because we can do all the work down here, but without their support and all this stuff up here, especially when it comes down to sharing the results back, and then what are we going to do with it afterwards, it can die if we're doing it here. So we've learned the hard way because we're so passionate. We're like, get it through. But it's like, we need that sponsorship, and ideally up front. Otherwise, it's like looking down the road, this may not go far.
Who do you report to in your business?
I report to Jason.
Is he a senior VP or?
He's our Chief Innovation Officer.
Awesome.
Now, I will say his boss has changed every year for the past 5 years within our company. So we've been a group that has moved around, and with each new leader, it's kind of like, oh, this is innovation now. Oh, this is innovation now. So it has, but that's just learning and growing is how we've taken it.
Yeah.
And so
I think on our side, I think the learning piece is the big piece. I know within our company, we're 1,500 employees, but we're 35 branch offices in Western Canada. I think the biggest challenge we have is sharing the learning and knowledge between the different groups, because we've operated as little franchise offices for so long, and find ways to share ideas. So back to your knowledge management base, huge value there. But I like the idea of, centralizing, but empowering our staff and helping them along. And I think also it's key to look beyond just your scope of work and thinking. Like, I'm a surveyor, never really knew that's why I was getting into it at the start, and kind of moved through that realm. But now it's like we turn into problem solvers and working with every other discipline, every other person, and they're really my clients now. Like, I have to solve their problem, not just mine. And that's a hard thing to kind of teach people within our company. Is, even our health and safety group, like, who's the client that's using this? It's like, it's all the people in the field that are actually empowered by this technology. So I think those are key things that we got to focus on, and that's what we need to embrace and get other people to adopt and kind of move along with us. But
yeah, it's building those champions, like, internally and externally. As a great example, we work with this company, Aztec Industries. They build like massive manufacturing equipment, and we had a free version of our software, and some of the design guys uploaded some stuff and then called us, and they were like, we were able to actually send a link to our CEO, and he could open up this simulation digital twin on his phone, and he didn't even realize we were doing this. And then this, that got him to be a champion, was like, okay, I see how this can enable sales. And for him, that was his main KPI. But then getting the sales team in the asphalt concrete industry on board with 3D and XR was a challenge. But I think winning those champions was, we went and did a training, and we were like, it doesn't need to be a headset, you use your phone. So it was all about kind of baby steps with champions, at all levels of the business for adoption.
Harvard Business Review did a study years ago on innovation and who we should report to. So when I was at STO, I reported to the CEO as the innovation leader. And, with that, we were able to define what are the problems our field teams are facing. Then we prioritize that. We start the testing. So I think reporting to a business leader, or especially the CEO, is really important for a true chief innovation officer.
I think that's huge. That's where you're going to see change. It's going to be, let's say, more manageable change or scaled change if you do that. If you find yourself in a position where you do feel like you're the innovator, but you're 3-4 tiers down, but you're or it's a dotted line to someone that's not even in that leadership position. It's more like an add-on or a tack-on. It will be a struggle. It will be a struggle. Because I've lived it. And you will make change, and you will be seen as a subject matter expert, but it'll be incremental. Oftentimes you might be, coming in to do the song and dance to people, but when you want to see true industry moving change, that's where you need to have that, we talk about top-down buy-in, but not just buy-in, to have the structural organization around it. we really believe in innovating the org chart. If we think about this, at RO, this construction command center, or implementing robotics, what roles don't exist today that do need to exist in a couple of years? Thinking like 10 years from now, or 5 years from now. Okay, well, how do we make that happen? Let's define the role. What's the problem? Not just name a cool name, but like Todd's always talking about a robot whisperer. Because we need someone that's going to own it. My role in our team was created as reality capture because it was tacked on as like under the VDC. Oh, it's you're coordinating. You go scan it. Well, now it's part of the strategy is how do we implement reality capture? How do we then take that and evolve it? But it has to be part of the strategy. It has to be part of something that ownership believes in, or the leadership really takes ownership and believes in. But if not, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
So one thing that I think is still challenging is that, we go and select and pilot. I keep going back to scanning because it's so diverse and everybody uses it in some way. We pilot scanning. We determine that we want to start using it. Now what? Because there's no like formal education. You can't go send people to a bunch of classes. It's like you have to go through your own processes, your own training. What do you guys see internally at companies when you've got this new technology nobody knows how to use yet? How do you go about training, scaling, something that there's not a lot of resources for yet?
I think a big one on our side is just go out and try it. I can't stress that one enough. Like, I think you'll see there's a flux of technology on the market too, and you can sit and wait and research and keep looking for that next thing. And I think there's going to be another version out, the next day, but just buy it and honestly give it a try. We fail on some of our projects and how we capture, which is great because we know when not to do it again. You learn from that, but I think, we just have to figure out how to apply it. I think that comes with a management style, I guess, leaders that actually support learning and doing this on-the-job type training, which I think it's tough. I'd say we still struggle with our firm. Some are fantastic with it, but other ones, we still look at the bottom line. We're a consultant in the end, and we need to make money off of hours we work. I think that's even changing in how we operate as a business now. We want to start pricing on value and like offer services based on value. So if I can go out and use a new tech that we can succeed with, and I can do it in 1/10 of the time, cool. I'm not going to charge a heck of a lot less than I did before because we're going to price on value, but just give it a shot. Don't wait. You'll be sitting here for a long time waiting because there'll be something else out tomorrow that's going to be better, maybe less expensive, but comes at the cost. It's an investment.
Yeah, I would say change management is the biggest problem we face in the entire industry. I think it's important to understand there's a difference between proof of concept and a pilot. A proof of concept is something you test and validate to give the entrepreneur and the company back information, right? And then pilot is the opportunity to test this on a real job and scale it. The goal is to scale. And lots of companies don't have the change management process, and the field teams suffer because you bring in new technology and you don't train the field team how to use it. And they look at it as like, damn it, I got to change. I just want to do my job. You know what I mean?
We really see it, I'm using more of the product manager skills than, that I didn't even think I was going to be using coming back to the industry. But with the fresh, different perspective, it's really, identifying the customer journey. Who's our client? Who's our customer with the project team? Well, if there's so many, we've talked about new innovative hardware and software solutions out there in the halls here. But if we have a project manager or PE's like, I just need to take a picture before this wall's covered up with sheetrock. But, we're being inundated with progress tracking, AI, object recognition, all this like futuristic stuff, but it's here, it's now. But I learned very early on that if you start talking about that when they have a basic need, which is to take a picture before a wall's covered up, and they're like, no, get out of here with that. No, that's I don't need that. They hear money, that's going to cost. But like I said, going back to that customer journey as well, if the technology's here, but they're here, I need to meet them where they're at, but then show them a little bit of taste of what's that next step. How do I help them get to the next step of their customer journey? And then, I like the idea, the concept of the POC versus the pilot. And taking it through a gate process. How do we say, okay, well, we've done discovery or definition. What is it we're trying to do with this project team? Who's our champions? And then how do we put it through the gate? Okay, did this bring value or not? VIA Technic is very big on closing the feedback loop. Okay, how do we bring value? But I think back to your question, on the scanning side of things, Matt, we're early in our infancy in doing scanning, I would say, at scale and in a professionalized manner. And so I have the luxury of really seeing it firsthand of the light bulbs going off at RO, and I'm really challenging my team on working cross-organizationally. Don't just put a scan on Ivion and say, oh, isn't this cool? No, okay, that's just a method of delivery. How does the VDC team use Ivion? How do they bring the scan into the model? How do we push this technology to the limits? How do we, like Friday, our VDC lead for a project said, we couldn't have done coordination without this scan. It was 17 setups with a tripod scanner, but when he said we couldn't have done it without the scan, we couldn't have done coordination with the scan, I was like, boom, yes, validation. And then, okay, yes, and how do we help the project team? That's VDC, it's great. You're digitally building it, but how do we help the project team who's actually building it? And so now the trades are like wanting more. They're like, hey, when can we come scan some more? So it's really when you get that initial light bulb that goes off, it's really cool to see the fire spread of people not wanting, but needing more of those tools.
Yeah, I think that's similar to a lot of the rollouts that we see. You try email blast, you try webinars, you try all these different things, but to recognize that construction is cyclical and we might not have caught that group at the right time in whatever project, but you planted that seed. And I would say most of the implementations and rollouts that we do we go for the long term. So we plant the seed, it's in their inbox. So if they search laser scanning, hey, that thing's gonna come back up. And then we find those early adopters who are going to help us create the case studies. And then from then on out, whenever I'm talking about a thing, I'm talking about, so-and-so at this job, this is what they saw, so that they can also reference that other person and pull them into what they hope to be. But I would say sometimes that is one of the more frustrating things is we find this really great solution. We have all these great resources. We have all the training content ready and things just people aren't automatically drawn to it in the way that we hope that they would. So yeah, that's sometimes the tricky part where it can cause some burnout on the innovation side as well, where, we're constantly putting ourselves out there. We're putting our all into these things and there isn't that adoption that you hope for. You kind of have to keep moving and move on to the next thing and hope that 6 months a year, then everyone's starting to see the goals and the values that you saw originally.
There's almost like a sociological aspect to it too, because you talked about burnout, but around, we're encountering too around these innovative things, people who typically grasp onto it a little bit sooner are like a younger generation. But how do we teach and demonstrate persistence, perseverance, and patience around this concept to help influence the industry while tapping into the next generation coming up who doesn't know life without the internet?
So I might disagree with you there.
Go for it. I love it. I love it.
First disagreement of the
I love it.
No.
And we didn't strategize sitting across.
Respectfully. So Northrop Grumman does a lot within the 3D XR space, and I'm actually speaking on a panel with someone next week, and they were having a real hard time with installation of these wires. They built a AR walkthrough because it was like pages and pages of diagrams, and I was like, oh, was it the young people? He was like, no, actually, it wasn't so much, the age of the person, generation they were in, but it was how long they had been at Northrop. So even if they were in an older generation, but they were new to Northrop and they got trained, they're like, this is just the way we do it. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. This is great. I don't have to have all these papers. So I thought that was really interesting. One use case, but.
When you work like that, it becomes a standard, the way that you train and implement. It's kind of like that sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think it's very big on tapping into, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But not cause burnout, but then also tap into their passions, because they might be very passionate about all the innovation. But then we really push our team to be big on being face-to-face. If you want to help the VDC team, sit with them, help them bring that skin into Revit. if you want to be and identify those champions and partner with them when it comes to 360 cameras and drones on their projects or scanning on their projects, go to the job site, sit with them, learn from them, because really we're just bringing solutions to their problem, but we need to identify their problems first. And
So
make their lives easier.
I want to jump a little bit to the culture piece. We've talked a lot about innovation at this point. So let's define culture a little bit. And what are some things that we're actually seeing internally? How do you develop the culture to embrace change and embrace the innovation? How are people actually working with or on the people side of things?
I think the knowledge management piece, like I brought up before, and having communities of practice that focus on business objectives, and you have a cross-functional team. My tagline is inspire one person at a time. It starts with one person. When you inspire someone, you change their attitude. When the attitude change, they change their behavior.
Their language.
And then, and then the next step is truly transformation of culture. And it has to start with the individual. Look, I think, centralized innovation programs, I believe don't work. I believe distributed everybody in the company is responsible for innovation. All right. I like to talk about innovation as a service, where we provide a service to the project team. We have a change management focus called this was when I was back at Mortenson, a change management team on my team in project solutions, an education team, a marketing team. And what we really strive to do was recognize one person at a time. And that drives the culture transformation.
Yeah, I would add that something that would really bother me when I would hear leaders say, we need to find our innovators. And in my mind, I was like, okay, I already know who the innovators are, so I can tell you their names. It's the people, who do all this stuff. It's like, no, we need to create a space, our system, where people feel safe and open to speak up if they see something that needs to be improved, if they see a mistake, call something out. Psychological safety. That's one of the biggest things that we talk about and preach as part of our innovative mindset. And then the other one is having the Agile mindset, knowing that you don't have to go straight from an idea to a car. I love the picture. You can go right to the skateboard to the tricycle to the bike to the that Agile image of you got to start someplace and build upon it. And then the next thing we talk about is design thinking, which you talked about the customer journey. Well, that begins with empathy. You need to know who you're designing for, what problems that they're facing. Put yourself in their shoes. So when you're saying they're not wanting to adopt, it's like, well, what's their life like? What is their work like? And really just, it takes some time too. Building the culture takes time. I think we're probably all ahead of our time. We see things and we're ahead, but it takes patience. And sometimes you have to take time away from work and rejuvenate yourself and then come back to work and then keep fighting the good fight. But yeah, there's just so many things to think about because humans, right?
Those are some of the things I was kind of wanting to hit on the culture piece is like, we talk about, we should innovate, but then how are we empowering from top to bottom, right? What systems are we putting in place to actually let people who want to be innovative be innovative? Are we actually putting systems in place that people can submit ideas, or we have workshops, or we, creating that space that people know I'm not going to get in trouble if something didn't go right? The failure piece. Those are difficult things to build because they also take time, they take attention, and so anything like that takes away from go do the production work. I think a lot of companies struggle with, and we have a lot of companies that are smaller businesses and mid-sized businesses who don't have full departments of people working on those types of things. So what are some practical ways for maybe those types of people? Many of you have worked in large companies and maybe have come from small as well. with what you've learned, what are some practical ways that people that are struggling to, implement this in their form, or maybe they don't have a whole department to go to pitch this stuff to, how do they address or get started or make suggestion for change?
I think a big one is, and we do this, is before we start any new initiative, it's really do all of the groundwork. Document what the current process is, document what your possible ROI is, really put in the legwork so that you have that reason why you're going to pursue this thing. And sometimes the outcome could be failure, but it's failure, and now we can move on past that. We can look for the next thing. So also getting everyone on board to say, hey, I'm going to try out this new thing. This might not be the right fit, but we at least need to do something. We need to move on something. And I think that's something really anyone can kind of jump into, is like clearly define that, clearly document, be really good about taking all your notes throughout the process. And then at the end, bundle it up, write that really nice one-pager, blast it, let everyone know about that thing that happened. And again, success or not, there's always something that can be learned from it at the end of the day.
And sharing your failures. I think we learn more from I think one of the things that I had the experience at Mortensen was the company leadership drove and sponsored us. Every community or practice was led by a business leader who ran a business. And what we did is spend a year analyzing over 300 projects. At Mortensen, we were doing like almost 300 projects a year. And we documented all of the real problems that our field team was facing. And it's interesting, the technology, everyone wants to talk about AI. I'm so sick of that. Anyways, I think defining and prioritizing those business objectives and pulling people together is the first step. And again, documenting. I think people think innovation needs AI and all this stuff, but innovation starts with process improvement. I think we have to figure out the process that team members are going through and fix the little steps before you even think about technology. And I think that's the problem. I really hate when I see companies that are construction management companies playing with layout robots. It's play. They don't self-perform work. They don't do layout, but yet they're playing with a robot. I mean, come on. We have to get our priorities straight.
But I think part of it is that really thorough documentation, because as soon as someone experiences the new way, they're going to forget how painful the old way was. And they're like, I don't know if it's really worth the money or worth the change that we're going to put into this. So sit with them, make the diagram of all the steps that they did. We often also times do NPR scores before and after, or NPS scores before and after, to be like, just remember how painful this part of your job was, so that we have that metric to say, you used to say this was your number one pain in your job, and now we've at least made it, a moderate pain, or we've improved it in some ways. And that's how the leadership gets behind it, to say, okay, yeah, you proved your case here. Let's continue this out.
And if this all sounds overwhelming amount of work to smaller companies, lean on your vendors, because our company would love to help. Like, we want to get those KPIs. We want to help. So you can lean on your vendors of this new tech to help put all that documentation together for you. And because we want this validation too.
The key piece on ours.
I'd throw out, it could be something as simple as you get your people together, you silent brainstorm on Post-it notes, what are your pain points? And you can cluster those and see, oh my gosh, let's see if we have some similarities, prioritize them, and then vote. Which one do we want to tackle this year?
Yeah.
Old school, Post-it, markers, silent brainstorm.
That's exactly what our committees went through.
We did it on Mural.
We did it on Mural, yeah. We took everybody that was on that committee meeting for our brainstorm session. They were putting sticky notes all over in different categories. And then we, had votes on which ones were the biggest pain points. So now we have a whole list of out of 50 or 100 companies, what are the biggest pain points? We can filter through by votes to say, here's the number one problem this community says is the problem to work on. how do we now start to create a solution for it? What is the solution? Is it a white paper that they can use to sell something to, a service? Is it a technology comparison to help people choose what technology to use? So I think I love that idea of, creating time for people to express what their issues are.
I was going to say, I like to talk about vendors real quick. I don't pay for testing proof of concepts for any company. I think it's ridiculous that these tech vendors, startups, ask us to pay them to give them knowledge, to be on our job site, to understand so they can improve their product. I ain't paying for that. Hell no. Lighthouse projects. No. You want me to test your product? It's for free. That's how I operate. And all the tech vendors love
Mic drop.
Opinionated.
I'll say you get what you pay for sometimes. But
I ain't paying for
I will say what stands some vendors out from someone who gets constant messages of, hey, we'd love to introduce and show you our product, blah, 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 is the people who sit down with us and help us write out that case study of why, help us come up with our KPIs, help us write the ROI. Like, what are you seeing? What are the metrics that you're finding with other customers that we're not even thinking about? That's what really sets some vendors apart. Because the other ones who are like, oh, here's the login, why don't you just go check it out? Those are the ones I log in once or twice and then it's done. I want someone to help build that presentation and that reason with me.
But I think back to your question around maybe smaller firms and such, around the culture side of implementing innovation. It comes down to for us, it's a part of our core value. Is there a better way? And you're not going to be limited if you have an idea. Best idea wins. But can you defend it? Can you back it up? And then you get into the testing and finding those champions and really build something off of it. But on the tangible side, we have a platform that we built internally. It's called the Innovation Station, where when we are farming for innovative ideas, a company of 550 people, we can put on a weekly newsletter and people can upload their idea into the Innovation Station. But it's not just something else that they have to another form to fill out, another thing that they have to read, but it's incentivized. It's taken from the software industry. So when they do pick a winner, it's 2 tickets to a cruise. It's 2 tickets anywhere in the contiguous U.S. So there's incentive to, and you can upload as many ideas as you want. So it's really investing into innovation, not just, oh, you get it, you can connect the dots. Why don't you tell me, dance for me? It's like you said, if you do get it, the company needs to hone in on that and invest into that. We don't have the luxury of throwing bodies at projects anymore. We really have to come up with new ways to innovate processes, which is not sexy. Robots is sexy, lasers are sexy, but innovating processes, the sticky notes.
But you can make it fun by playing music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Play music, have fidget toys. But that's where the real work, because, coming from the vendor side, Hilti understands the task level of the worker, but really where innovation or innovation at the process level of construction really is where we're going to see that step change of doing a project that used to take 12 months, now we can do it in 8 months. How do we do that? How do we do that project with only 30 RFIs and not 400 RFIs?
Yeah.
How do we get to that point? And that's where we're seeing a lot of incremental change, is honing in on those champions, honing in on the process, marking down steps, one step at a time, we can cross them off.
And to add to the incremental change is a huge thing. I know we had all these committees and catchphrases around our company when I first started, and Blue Sky Committee and all this pie in the sky stuff we want to do. But really, we've kind of taken a step back and now focus on how can we just do a better job at what we're doing now? Show that short-term innovation. Again, it might not even be that innovative in the grand scheme of things, but that process change is the huge step forward for us to really, I think, get some quick wins, with it and prove value. And I think that's how we can build out a program and I get asked all the time, like, what does your program should look like? I know hire a bunch of people to support you. I'm like, well, cool, I'd love to, but at the same time, I think I find myself as an innovation coach more than anything with people around my company and like finding about the problems and just talking through ideas and pain points, and then get to the solutioning part. Not the other way around. There's solutions for everything, and from our side, I don't want to build everything. There's software companies we partner with. I came from the software side, like we were begging for clients to solve problems and do that way. So I also want to reiterate on like the product management piece. I was a product manager for 2 years. I had no idea what I was doing when I started. But honestly, I think now I brought that back in the consulting side. That's a huge thing. We actually went through a product management training session with a bunch of our employees we've got an idea factory like you do, and we had ideas submitted and getting them through the ideas, but it got to the point where we needed to just mature them a little bit more and talk about them and get to the root of the problem. And honestly, come up with, these are the 5 things we might be able to do. So we sat through, probably about 15, 20 people through a product management workshop. It was awesome. We had, really good feedback from people in our company, and they start thinking that way. So
I have a quick story around innovating meatloaf. Perfect. Have y'all heard about this? So there was a story about this family was getting together, and this dad was making like his grandmother's famous meatloaf. And so the son was helping him make it, and before he stick it in the oven, the dad cuts the 2 ends of the meatloaf off. And the son's like, that's kind of weird. So he puts it in the oven, and he's like, Dad, why we cut the ends of the meatloaf off? And he's like, oh, that's the way I learned how to make it, from your grandmother. And so he's like, well, why do you do that? He's like, I don't know, just ask her. So like next holiday comes around, he goes to Grandma, hey, Grandma, why'd you cut the ends of the meatloaf off? And she was like, actually, that's just the way I learned from my mother. And so finally, the great grandmother is very old. They get to the family reunion. The son, great grandson, goes up to her and says, "Hey, great grandmother, why do we today, love your meatloaf, but why do we waste the ends?" And she goes, "Oh, the oven wasn't big enough." But that's just the way that the process has been handed down from generation to generation. So it's asking why, it's being curious. How do we do things? That's the 7 most expensive words in construction or business is this is the way we've always done it.
Yep.
And how do we change that?
And I think a lot of that is, someone mentioned this earlier, but spending time on site, spending time next to your project managers, because a lot of those things are the things like we had project accountants who were sending hundreds of emails for every project closeout to collect documentation. But to them, that was just part of the job. That's how it had always been. And it wasn't until we were kind of, sitting there being like, that doesn't feel right. From an innovative standpoint, I've never been a project coordinator. I don't know what the ins and outs are. Same with superintendents. They're not as likely to submit an idea because they're like, it's only affecting me. But when you visit job site after job site, and they're like, you start noticing all of these things. And I think that that's really one of our biggest parts, is to build that relationship so that they do start different people start sharing their ideas, sharing their thoughts. But then also we're noticing things on site to be like, there's got to be a better way. That was always been one of our taglines, is there's got to be a better way.
Absolutely. I think kind of shifting in terms of, I hear a lot of opportunities to address with the strategy of innovation, if it's in your company's strategy. And, in terms of how many of us have 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, and 15 year roadmap. And if you are able to do that, then you have a series of business opportunities to solve problems together. And I think if it's not part of your company's strategy, I think it should be. How do we invest in our people? And I think innovation, you invest in your people, knowledge management, and all is good stuff. And you let them run. You fund them, you give them the tools and the change management opportunities, but it all kind of starts with that roadmap. And how do you really hit that? So I'd love to hear from...
Am I allowed to disagree? No, I'm not kidding.
Let's do it.
I'm not going to disagree, but, I'm thinking about this and some of the other things that have been said of, there's no one way to do anything, right? The first thing that actually popped in my mind when you said that is recently watching NVIDIA's CEO, most valuable company in the world, they don't have a 1-year plan. He's like, things change so much, we're just on the go. We just go as we go.
Yeah.
Same with like when I started in business, I'm like, I don't even know how to build a business plan. I don't know. Like today, I don't have a 3-year goal. I don't have a 5-year goal. I don't. I think it comes down to you can do it either way, but you have to build your process around whichever way you're embracing.
Yeah.
And like the type of work you're doing, or you know, I think there is multiple paths.
Yeah.
We really believe.
I'm spoiled because I work for massive organizations, 6 billion and 10 billion. So it's hard for me to kind of talk about, you know, the smaller or mid-sized companies.
Well, we really believe in being highly aligned, but loosely coupled. How do we all row in the same direction towards, you know, the goal similar to NVIDIA, but allow our teams to be loosely coupled to, if there is a better way, to try and go after that. Because if that is something that's a better way, how do we invest and scale that better idea? But as long as it's aligned with our company core values, our strategy. This year, right now, we're halfway through our first time ever as a company strategy that's longer than 12 months. And it's a 3-year strategy, and it's all about optimization. You know, optimize was like the buzzword 5 years ago. But really, we're focusing on optimizing the organizational structure, the optimizing, reducing the amount of softwares that we have to juggle, and optimizing processes. We've over-processized our people, and how do we change that? How do we allow them to focus on the build? That's the biggest thing right now that we're aiming at. But
Yeah, I think in having that main 1 to 3 goals for the year, and then to your point, empowering people is so important. But then you have those champions. Like if you're at a company, you're like, we don't have an innovation group, I feel not empowered. I mean, I always go back, I heard the like head of 3D or Rolls-Royce, he was like, I just think, can they stop me? That was literally, he said this on stage. I'm like, I can repeat it. And he's like, yeah, because like we've got all these IT security roles, but I always find a loophole, and then I do a project, I prove value, and then we grow. I'm like, well, that's a good way to do it. You can make anything happen, I guess. But
yeah, sometimes you know, you have to be careful, right, with the line of like breaking the rules.
And they're a huge company, which I was like, okay.
The rule breakers are the innovators. You know, there's a line to walk there. So don't take all of this and implement it and blame us. But
yeah, I'm just repeating what.
No, I know. You know, I want to ask another question. You guys have a lot of great processes, great feedback on innovation. What are some of your current challenges? And I want to keep that broad. Like, is the current challenge you see with innovation and some of this, you know, some of this tech or some of this ecosystem within your company, is it change management? Is it leadership buy-in? Is it funding? Is it selecting equipment? Is it lack of people that know how to use it? Like, around this and some of the process, what comes to mind as some of the current challenges you see or face?
I think the biggest one for us is just the people change. I think honestly that's the hardest part. Like, you know, like I said, there's so much technology out there, and it's technology overload. So I think that's like, you know, cutting back software specs and tools and things that we use is a key part for us to be successful, because as we move from more SaaS models and subscription agreement, we can't afford to buy all of this. So I think that's a problem that we've got, is just this overload for staff who are trying to do their thing. And again, we're talked about companies here today, so I might talk about salespeople like contacting, and again, like selling, you know, it's snake oil, but selling their tools that's going to be the better than anything else and what it is. Like, those are all things that I think you got to take it all with a grain of salt of what it is and look at that problem piece. But I think it's the people part and learning from each other. I think the transparency of this in our company is something I really want to push out, is, again, that we can learn from each other. Like in our idea factory, we do have things come in and we tell everybody about it. Like, we don't want to hide anything that we're doing. Like you said, for anything good and bad, doesn't matter. That's awesome for us as an organization. But say that's our biggest thing, is cutting through all the buzzwords and everything else right now too, is another piece of with our convincing our leadership that we don't need to just get into every little buzzword. Like, focus on these quick wins. So
I like to talk about technology is we don't have a technology problem. We got a people problem.
yeah,
That's the challenge. And the old mindset. I mean, if you think about our industry, right? And you think about innovation, what's holding us back? Law, risk management, like all of these things that are focused on, managing risk is really important to think about.
The Spear and Doctrine.
Huh?
Spear and Doctrine. For plays and specs is one of the things, that's kind of the gray area of VDC is you want to, go through, have a clash-free model and build digitally, but in the end, like contractually, you're contracted to build per plans and specs. And so that's like, but again, one of the challenges that we're facing is legacy workflows, legacy mindsets. But I don't think it's any, I don't think it's intentional. I think it's safe because there's been, we built a multi-trillion-dollar business around construction, and but it used to be done with handshakes and light tables, and pyramids were not built with VDC. But things have changed, like you said, like law has been a big influence on that. But with that, less people have died with the safe constraints around it. But every day someone dies on a job site. How do we reduce that? How do we build a safe environment for them to work in without being over safe to where that's less safe for them to work in? You just have people walk around with bubbles and high-vis bubbles. But, how do we, that's been the biggest thing, is really just legacy habits, legacy workflows, because it's worked so far. But I'm not going to say, I will never, talk about the labor shortage again. But with that, we've talked about it for years, but there has to be incremental change because it's not going away. It's going to get way, way, way worse. At the beginning, it was, okay, well, how do our backlog is increasing. How do we tap into that backlog more? I mean, we have backlog for, I don't think it's not bragging, but we have backlog for like 2 years, but how do we scale? How do we tap into that more? We're trying to turn away work and people are like, no, we need to build. We need to build now. We need to build more. Every time you like something, it's another data hole that needs to go up. And so really it's the biggest challenges are tapping into that backlog, doing more with less, optimizing our people. There was a study done where that the belief is that in a day, only 30% of a worker's time is turning wrenches. Everything else is administrative, taking phone calls, walking from the trailer to the job site, getting material, sitting in meetings. How do we increase it from 30 to 35%? And that's, I think, some of our responsibilities, because it's I believe it's going to become a bigger problem than just impacting our project, but a bigger problem into roadways, projects not finishing like they should be on time. So it's the biggest challenge. I mean, one thing is workflows, but another thing is like the sociological aspect.
Maybe psychological safety. You brought it up. That's one of the challenges. People don't feel comfortable sharing their idea. They think they're going to get shot down by the PM. So we need to create that psychological, safety.
As you're all talking, I'm like, yep. I know for us, it feels like we have these big ideas and we see so much opportunities for our company and our industry, and we get buy-off, but we also make people uncomfortable. Yeah. And so they'll say, oh, yeah, that's great. Here, you can have this. So make do with this. And we show results. And that's the biggest thing. And I think you mentioned that earlier with sharing the digital twin on the phone. Results are key, but having that support and buy-off so that we can move forward on some of these things have been challenging. So.
Well, what very tangible challenges we face is wanting a service from our company, but not having the budget or paying for it.
Budget.
That.
If we're, safe space, right? We're not being recorded.
Is your innovation job costed?
It is. There is overhead as well. It's carried, but when providing a service, it is coded. To that project.
One quick tip before we end. Everything I do has to do with metrics, and the best way to do that when you're in a construction company is to hire college interns. I never got a FTE in my department without them starting as an intern. I sent them on job sites, capture everything, document everything. They loved it, So it's a little tip.
Yeah.
See, how do that's one of the challenges we've heard from some of the service providers in the hallways too. But the inverse effect is that you only see a spike of capturing in the summers. So how do we maintain that steady growth of capturing? Because I think that's good to get like a charge of innovation, but then once you go back to school, how do we maintain that as a standard?
Well, I think that goes to like one of our biggest problems, which is just finding the right talent. When we're hiring someone who their primary role is going to be BIM coordination, there's probably going to be maybe some slow times in that. So it's like, can that person also flex over and do this? Can that person, can they help improve a UI or something like that on an internal tool? So I think that's really kind of one of the hardest parts for us on our innovation teams is we don't want to silo people too much, but yeah, how do we find talent that fits all of the different things that we could be working on without growing a 100% team overnight?
You need to be a generalist.
Yeah,
So
a generalist.
we could talk about this forever. I know we are down to wrapping up here. What I want to do is give, I know this is hard, but 10 seconds, okay? 10 seconds for a last word from each of you of something that you want to leave in the minds of our group, and we'll start down at the end and work our way this way.
Yeah, like I said a little bit earlier, like be curious, ask why, don't be afraid to get your boots dirty, be gritty, because we need people to dig in and really identify the problems, but then own them. Once your dog chasing the bus, once you capture the bus, invest your time, find the empathy, and you will see the incremental change.
I'd say know who you're designing for, what their problems are. So starting with empathy on the one hand for the solution, but for selling the solution, know your audience, know what's going to speak to their heart and their mind in order to get your idea through.
Agreed. That's awesome. Again, I'll go back to people and knowledge management. I think you should question your business if you don't have a knowledge management program. If you don't have a lean program or agile in a construction organization, you're not innovative, okay? If you're focusing on the big ideas that will hit the market in 10 years or 5 years, I mean, that's a good opportunity for a roadmap, but we have to really focus in on knowledge management. That's what it's all about. Everybody is responsible for innovation, just like everybody is responsible for safety on our job sites. So that's my little tips.
Tricky one. I think that there's kind of two sides. So from the innovation side of things, I would say, it's important to spend as much time with as many different people as you can, sit with different groups at lunch, listen, jump into other calls if you can, just be everywhere that you can. So you're constantly learning and observing, and then therefore learning how to roll things out to different people, what's going to mean different things to different people. I think the other side of it is for people who, I think a lot of people in this room are very innovative. They're looking to grow and expand. And if you're in a company where you don't feel like that is a priority, there are lots of companies out there where that is a priority. And that mindset of having those real world experiences and then coming into companies like ours is incredibly valuable. So, always think about your future and kind of where you want to go with that.
I think start small, start now. I think ask questions, be curious. Honestly, I think that's really, don't wait. I think if there's a way that you're doing things now, question it, see if there's a way to improve, and stick your neck out there, take a bit of a risk, and see if you can come up with something better.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say just from where you should be thinking about innovating. I mean, I've worked in the 3D graphics space for 20 years. And we'll finally now have enough power in the palm of our hand to bring that to the real world, and thinking about how you can connect and leverage that digital world with the physical to increase speed to market, to make people safer. There's just so much opportunity there.
Love it. All right, please give a hand for our first panel. We're going to move on. Thank you, guys.